90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is Attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. My special guest today, as we start the 33rd season of Law You Should Know, is Attorney Carolyn DeVaughn, and she is a trust and estates attorney and also involved in business and corporate law with the law firm of Gross Shuman in Buffalo, New York. As a young lawyer, she's going to talk about what the experience is like going to law school and as a young lawyer, and things she wishes she did more of as she was in law school and preparing for a legal career. And these tips may apply to students in all fields and graduate programs out there. Carolyn, welcome to Law You Should Know, and thank you for sharing your wisdom being a young, successful lawyer and things you wish you had done better or more of in law school.
Hi, Ken. Thank you for having me.
So looking back on your legal career, your legal education not so long ago, what do you wish you had done more of in law school to prepare yourself for being a lawyer?
You know, it's an interesting question because hindsight is 20/20, right? And I'm also happy with where I am. So there are a couple different layers to it. The first and foremost part that is important in law school, and especially if you are planning on staying in your area, is just getting yourself out there. There are so many opportunities to go to events and to meet local attorneys. And it can be an incredibly intimidating thing to do when you're a law student, but it's also incredibly important. If you are particularly planning on staying in that geographic area, then you really are going to be practicing with those people the moment that you are admitted to the bar, and or even beforehand if you get hired right away. And knowing people and on a personal level, being able to say hello or go up at an event or see them in court or recognize their name in an email, that just adds such a sense of familiarity, and one that is really, really, really helpful to feeling better as you enter a pretty intimidating field.
So it's certainly going to give you a head start in being part of a legal community, and that would translate to being part of any kind of community. And even if you're not working for those people, it gives you a source of advisors and maybe career advice about some legal issues or how to handle a situation or what different approaches there may be out there. And I just want to mention that even if you're going to school in one place and you're considering working in another, on summer vacations and with the internet and through Zoom, you can make contacts in other places where you're thinking about going after your law school or after your professional school. So there are ways to plant seeds in more than one area.
Absolutely.
In terms of courses in law school and many other professional schools or even in colleges, there are required courses. Do you regret not taking some courses? Did you find that some courses were surprisingly helpful to you after you started working as a lawyer?
Yeah, law school is 3 years. So it's the time that you can take two approaches. You can touch on absolutely everything. And there are mandated requirements. So some of it is out of your control, but you do ultimately touch on everything at a very, very introductory level. However, you can choose to see all areas, or you can really focus and hone in on certain topics and certain areas. And I think that there are pros and cons to both approaches, right? So in one regard, if you take absolutely every course possible on trusts and estates, then by the time that I get out, I probably have seen a fact pattern that has related to, in some way, to something that I'm going to see. But the caveat to that, though, is that even a fact pattern doesn't necessarily prepare you for what it feels like sitting right in front of a client. And then in the opposite, on the opposite end, I could have, tried to dive into criminal law a bit more just to see, because who knows what my future could have held.
Did your passions or goals change in law school? Did you go in with some areas of interest and develop others, and did they change a little bit or a lot? And maybe those are your colleagues as well. Should someone go to law school with a preconceived notion, I want to be a criminal lawyer, or I want to be a patent lawyer, or just see what evolves? What strikes your fancy?
For me, I had an interest in particularly estate planning for families that had children with special needs. And interestingly enough, that exact area is what even got me on the path to going to law school. I watched an attorney in a meeting do estate planning with a family that had to do a supplemental needs trust. And I said to myself, that right there, that's what I want to do. So then I tried to gear a lot of my coursework and my internships and my clerk work in law school gear it towards that. However, I have also added a lot of things to what I've done since then and since entering law school. And since starting my practice. So I did not at all think that I would do anything corporate and business law related. And I have started to love that, or things with banks. I absolutely love working with loans and all of that. And I never thought going in that would happen. And that became something that I started doing in practice. But because you say yes to work, and in coursework and in law school, you also just say yes to experiences and yes to courses that, if anything about it seems remotely interesting to you, even one line of the description of the course, just try it. Or on the other end, if you hate it, you see in a course, which is better than in practice. And
are there courses in law school that may help, or perhaps even in college, that might help with those counseling skills, with those drafting skills, with negotiations, or for someone who's thinking about litigation with those kind of skills?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Interestingly enough, a litigator who goes to court and is just is out there and arguing and all of those things, you think that of the public speaking component, right? But also drafting is a huge part of what a litigator does. And so if somebody says, I want to go to court, I want to stay away from writing courses, well, I recommend taking quite a few writing courses, and you can learn how the use of a comma here or there matters, and that could potentially be the issue on which you're even litigating. So that's important. And then for the counseling part and in talking to clients, unfortunately, I actually think that that's a struggle with what a law school even necessarily prepares you for. So when you get out and talk to clients, and particularly clients who are in an extremely difficult position, it can feel very overwhelming in that you didn't learn how to do that in law school.
And maybe you need to start that course or a CLE seminar on counseling. No, because part of it is listening and then gently talking about possible options or choices and different scenarios. And in any kind of case, lawyers have to counsel their client. They have to listen. They have to present possible options. They have to perhaps give advice.
Absolutely.
And help the client make a choice.
Absolutely. And, something that young and new attorneys in particular also have to maneuver is the fact that it might not even necessarily be your client. So the client could be the client of a partner, and you are assisting the partner and working with the partner on the file. And you could become extremely important in the sense that you're communicating with the client all the time. However, it's that the partner also is really, really the one who, I don't like wording it of call the shots, but that if they really like doing it using a certain strategy or a certain thought process, particularly for communications, and then you really have to be mindful of that as well.
But you have to find an approach that's going to properly inform the client and convey their wishes, so their wishes will be carried out.
Absolutely. Oh, and I'm lucky in that I work in a firm that the dynamic between all attorneys is just, I have felt so lucky, right? The communication is really, really, really nice, and that everyone's on the same page. And it's always, I can walk to any door in the office and ask any question. And then particularly those with whom I'm directly working, we are in constant communication about that type of thing.
And I just want to remind our listeners that we're talking with Attorney Carolyn DeVaughn, and she is with the law firm of Gross Shuman, located in Buffalo, New York, and with their trust and estates and business and corporate law department. She's talking about important skills and courses in law school and how law students should pick and choose their courses to help give them the best possible experience and the skills they need after law school. And this applies to other professional schools and college students as well. And if you've missed any portion of the program, you can find the podcast at nccradio.org. And you're listening to Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. Carolyn, what about in terms of extracurricular activities? Is it important for law students to try to go beyond their coursework and get involved in extracurricular activities, maybe law related outside the school or within the law school as well?
Yes. My answer is an absolute yes.
And why is it so important?
Typically, lawyers say it depends, right? But here, no, it's an absolute yes. It's important for so many reasons. One, if you meet a lot of people and you even have one person who sticks out to you as someone who can be used as a resource, and I don't even just mean a resource in the sense that you would reach out for asking about jobs or anything like that, but even just a friendly face, that in itself is a resource when you go around and go to events. But also because that is truly how you meet people for the purpose of having referrals and trusting anybody. If you need to have work, if you can't take on a client for one reason or another, and you need to know people out in the world, then you can meet people through that from law school. So no matter where you are, whether you're staying in the community in which you are going to school or going somewhere else. And then also for so many people, it can lead to a job, right? So whether it's a professor or somebody who you meet at an event, it could mean truly that somebody reaches out to you for a job.
And in terms of fellow students, you might want to discuss the coursework with them, discuss different assignments, different approaches to legal problem solving. And as you said, if you network with other lawyers outside the law school, you're getting real world experience. You're finding out what areas there are in the real world, and you can see if you like them. Maybe it will lead to a summer job or a part-time job, or maybe you'll learn that's not a good field for you, or there are no jobs in that field.
Right.
What about the difference between working, going to law school and learning about the law and being a lawyer in the real world? Are there a lot of differences between the school experience and the real world of law? Yes
and no. Somebody could very much learn some of this. You learn a lot of the skills that you have to carry over into your practice in law school. However, you also realize once you are in the practice, there are a lot of skills that you really, really need to use that you may not have needed in law school. So take, for example, in law school, time management. You absolutely need to learn. If you don't go to law school with great time management skills, you need to learn them quickly and continue to use them throughout the 3 years. Particularly because year 2 and 3, by then you're either working part-time as a clerk in a law firm, or you have just something in addition to just simply your classroom coursework. And then when you become a practicing attorney, you absolutely need to have great time management skills. So that, yes, okay, you learn from one to the next, and they're similar. However, something that is drastically different is the concept of even managing expectations, right? So in law school, the expectations are laid out extremely clearly at the beginning of the course. You walk in, there's a syllabus, and in every single one of your courses, you know what every single day for the entire semester is going to look like. And you can plan and you can put certain things on your calendar, and it can play out exactly that way. In the everyday life, being a lawyer, it doesn't work that way. And you really have to be both flexible and careful with your time and really and diligent at the same time. It's a very, very different type of way of working. So, and managing expectations on all fronts, with clients, with the partners with whom you work, with your fellow associates, with staff, with your family. I myself have a 16-month-old son, and home expects things as well, and that's very, very new. And compared to law school, where you can also in law school kind of use the "I'm a law student" excuse for a lot of things. If you don't go to Thanksgiving because you're studying for an exam, everybody thinks, okay, well, law school is temporary. I get it. You really, really have to dig in. And then once you're working, it changes a bit, but the workload doesn't change. If anything, it really gets a lot more. So that's an interesting difference, right?
I just want to go back to two things. Let's take a step back to before law school. Are there things that you recommend someone take, courses that you recommend they take in college that will help them with law school? On reading, writing, communication. Are there any good majors to be in college that will help you with law school?
So my answer might be a little different than what you expect, because I was out of undergrad for 5 years before going to law school. And I had actually when I was going to law school, I was a bit hard on myself for not having known immediately after undergrad and going to Canisius that I knew. I was hard on myself for not knowing right at age 22 that I wanted to be a lawyer. And it meant then that I was starting my journey in the field of law at age 26, 27. So I didn't take any courses related to law in undergrad. And then I worked in a completely different field for the 5 years thereafter. And now, however, I love that was my path, and that I feel that it actually allowed me to bring something different to the table, and including, all of my years of experience in a different field, which I pulled from,
And I think many people recommend taking some time off to reflect on where you want to go. And do some people, maybe some of your classmates, have mixed feelings about going to law school? They're going to law school by default. It sounds like you went there, and you, at that age and at that time, that's what you knew, that's what you wanted. But did you find some of your colleagues in law school, do you recommend someone go to it if they're not sure what they want to do with the law, or what path they want to follow in a career?
I'm biased because I love learning about and knowing the law so much. And so I find it all extremely interesting. And I think that even if you don't want to be a lawyer, you can do incredible things with a JD. You can be the head of an HR department. You can be, if you don't want to work in private practice, you could be in-house counsel. You could be an agent for professional athletes. So I'm biased in that regard, that I think there are so many things you can do if you go to law school and don't actually want to be, your typical attorney. However, I also think if you are unsure and you are potentially going for reasons that are other than you want to go, you enjoy law, you would enjoy the rigor of law school, then do not go.
You can defer it and take a sample course or something.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to remind our listeners, we're talking with Carolyn DeVaughn. She's an attorney with Gross Shuman in Buffalo, New York, and she's talking about her experience as a Buffalo law student and as a young lawyer working in the field. Let's talk about the debt. One advantage of going to Buffalo, it's a public law school, so the costs are lower. Is debt something that people should consider going to law school or managing that debt and dealing with that debt when they come out of law school?
Yes. I can't say you shouldn't factor it in. And it wouldn't put the seriousness of the financial aspect into play if I said, don't care about it at all and just go because you love it and want to be a lawyer. However, it's difficult. I had to take out some loans to go. And at that point, I was at a point in my life where my peers and my friends were at 5 years into their careers and were never looking at taking out student loan debt again. However, I said to myself, I looked at the numbers and I said, in life, you have to consider it as an investment, right? Look at the investment. If you're buying property with a mortgage, it can feel extremely scary. And here that was the case, but I knew that for me personally, because of what I wanted to do with my future, that it would be worth it. And the time that the debt really also comes into play is when you are getting out of law school and you are assessing, do I take a job, particularly in big law, where you can knock out that debt quickly? But a lot of people don't necessarily want to do that or some people don't want to do that, and a lot of people do. But if you don't want the big law life, and in New York City, where you would pay off your debt, but your work-life balance would potentially not be exactly what you want it to be for a couple of years, then you have to figure that out. And then you're paying your debt for much longer, but you just have to weigh it. And
also not everyone may get that high-paying job and be able to knock off that debt.
Correct. It's not a guarantee. Not a guarantee.
And it's a relatively smaller percentage of people at most law schools that will have that situation where they're getting those big bucks and can easily knock off the debt.
Correct. And even if you are getting a higher paying job in a city that is smaller and the salaries aren't the same as, some of the other cities, you get into your normal life, and paying off your debt aggressively isn't always necessarily an option.
Carolyn, I thank you for the tips you've given for law students and other graduate students, even college students, in managing their expectations and planning out their career. Can you give us your firm's website or your email contact information so that people can reach you?
My email is cDeVaughn, that's D as in David, E, V as in Victor, AUGHN at Gross, that's GROSS -Shuman, SHUMAN.com. And our website is www.gross-shuman.com.
And what information is available there concerning the issues that you work on, trust and estates and business and corporate law?
If you look up my website, my bio on the website, Carolyn L. DeVaughn, you'll see just information about me, a little blurb about who I am, and then my education and experience. And you'll also see a lot of the other attorneys and all of their experience. The firm has attorneys who have practiced there for 40 plus years, and attorneys who are young and new, and everywhere in between. And it's just a really, really great place.
And from what you're saying, you don't have, even though you took time to make your decision, you have no regrets about your journey through law school and your journey in the law, about taking that journey?
None. It's you take every day. And of course, there are stressful days, but there are amazing days, and you meet so many amazing people. And I love the people with whom I work, and the challenge, I feel good. And that I genuinely want, if somebody is unsure, I genuinely want them to reach out to me to just talk about it. And if they're in law school and they're unsure of which direction that they would want to go, I would absolutely love to be, a contact. And because I've had people be that person for me, and it was so, so, so important. And it is, and it will continue to be important to me.
Okay. Thank you very much. And if you missed any portion of the program or want to tell someone else about it, you can go to the podcast at nccradio.org, along with many other podcasts about the law. I thank you for joining us for the 33rd season of Law You Should Know here on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. And please join us next week at this same time for another program on Law You Should Know.